A first-class cabin. A senior manager is screaming, her finger pointed at a black passenger. The accusation, theft. She's an imposter. She's a threat. She demands security, determined to have this woman humiliated and thrown off the flight. But she made one catastrophic mistake. The woman she's accusing isn't just any passenger. She's Dr. Clara Rose, the general counsel of the entire airport. The manager didn't just pick a fight. She just lit a fuse on a bomb that will end her career, her reputation, and her travel privileges. Forever. Dr. Clara Rose understood the weight of a gate. Not just the physical boarding gate, Gate E14 at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, but the metaphorical ones. The gates of the bar exam, the gates of the partnership track at her old law firm, the gates of the executive suite. She had passed through all of them, not by finding a key, but by building a battering ram of credentials, composure, and sheer, unyielding brilliance. At 42, Clara was the general counsel and legal director for the Atlanta Airport Authority, a sprawling, chaotic, $30 billion ecosystem that she was legally responsible for. She was, in many ways, the airport's brain. Her signature was on every lease agreement for every airline, every retail space, every security contract. She knew the concrete's tensile strength on runway 3 and the precise legal definition of non-compliant passenger. This Friday, she was tired. The past month had been a brutal negotiation with Global Sky Airlines, a major international carrier. Their 10-year lease was up, and they'd tried to bully the airport on landing fees. Clara had spent the last 72 hours in marathon sessions, her team running on fumes and lukewarm coffee. She had won. Global Sky had conceded, signing a deal that was favorable to the city. Her reward was Flight 202 to London, a week of vacation followed by a 3-day international aviation law conference. Her ticket was first class, seat 2A. It was a full fare ticket, paid for by the conference organizers, a testament to her standing in the industry. She moved through the exclusive Global Sky Serenity Lounge with quiet grace. The lounge was a bubble of hushed tones, clinking glasses, and the scent of expensive perfume. Clara found a quiet alcove, sipping a sparkling water, reviewing one last brief on her tablet. It was impossible not to notice Karen Brown. Karen was in the lounge's business center, which was really just a counter with 3 computers. She wasn't using a computer, she was pacing, braying into her phone. "Look, David, I don't care what the client prefers," she snapped, her voice slicing through the lounge's calm. "My team is not redoing the Q3 projections. I am a senior manager at Synergy Solutions. I know the framework. You just need to execute. I'm boarding a flight. I'll be unreachable. Just get it done." She was a woman in her late 40s, dressed in a sharp but slightly wrinkled blazer, her blonde hair pulled back in a severe ponytail. She radiated an aura of stressed self-importance. Clara watched her for a moment, filed her away under predictable corporate archetypes, and returned to her brief. A few minutes later, the boarding call for Flight 202 to London was announced. Clara packed her tablet, gathered her trench coat, and headed for the first-class boarding lane. She was one of the first to board, greeting the flight attendants with a polite smile. "Welcome aboard, Dr. Rose," the lead flight attendant, a polished woman named Susan, said, glancing at the manifest. "Thank you, Susan. A pleasure to be here." Clara made her way to 2A, the window seat in the second row of the luxurious cabin. She slid her roller bag into the overhead bin and settled into the plush, pod-like seat. She took off her heels, slipped on the provided slippers, and let out a sigh that felt like it carried the weight of the entire month. She was off. The plane was her sanctuary, a non-jurisdictional space where, for 8 hours, no one could reach her. The cabin slowly filled. A businessman took 1A. A quiet older couple settled into row 3. And then Karen Brown arrived. She stormed down the aisle, still on her phone. "And I mean it, David. I'm turning this phone off. Don't call me." She hung up with a dramatic stab of her finger, huffed, and then stopped dead, right next to Clara's seat. She looked at her boarding pass, a flimsy piece of paper. She looked at the seat number, 2B, printed on it. Then she looked at Clara. Clara, sensing her, looked up from the in-flight magazine. "Good evening," Clara said pleasantly. Karen's eyes scanned Clara from head to toe. She saw a black woman, professionally dressed, with intricate box braids styled in a chic bun. She saw her sitting in 2A, and in that fraction of a second, Karen Brown's internal calculator came up with an answer that simply did not compute. "Excuse me," Karen said, her voice not polite but accusatory. "I think you're in my seat." Clara's smile didn't falter, but her eyes became very still. She had played this scene before, in department stores, at exclusive restaurants, in boardrooms. "I don't believe so," Clara said, her voice calm and even. "I'm in 2A. Are you 2B? She gestured to the aisle seat next to her, the one clearly marked 2B on the bulkhead. Karen's lip curled. She held up her boarding pass as if it were a writ of execution. "My ticket is first class." "As is mine," Clara replied. She held up her own boarding pass, also clearly marked. "Rose Clara. Seat 2A. Karen squinted at it, her brain seemingly unable to process the data. This woman was in 2A. Her seat was 2B. This meant she had to sit next to her. "Oh," Karen said, the word dripping with condescension. "Right." She shoved her oversized carry-on into the overhead bin with unnecessary force, grunting as it banged against Clara's smaller bag. "Do be careful," Clara said, her voice still neutral. "It's an overhead bin, not a museum," Karen snapped. She plopped into seat 2B, fastening her seatbelt with a violent yank. Clara put her headphones on, a clear, "Do not disturb" sign. She closed her eyes, trying to recapture the feeling of peace. It was gone. The air next to her was vibrating with a high-frequency irritation. Karen was not the type to sit quietly. She fumbled with the pre-departure drink menu. She fiddled with the seat controls, making the chair whir and groan. She let out a loud, exaggerated sigh. Then she accidentally knocked her freshly delivered glass of champagne. It didn't spill much, just a splash, but it landed directly on the expensive leather briefcase Clara had placed by her feet. "Oh, clumsy me," Karen said, her voice utterly devoid of apology. She made a weak, dabbing motion with a cocktail napkin. Clara stiffened. She pulled her briefcase up, her jaw tightening. "You need to be more careful, Ms. "It's just a little spill," Karen interrupted, her eyes flashing. "Your bag will be fine, if it's real leather anyway." That was it. The line. Clara took off her headphones. She turned her body as much as the seat would allow and looked directly at Karen Brown. Her gaze was not angry. It was analytical, the same look she gave a hostile witness during a deposition. "The bag is real," Clara said, her voice dropping to a low, precise baritone. "The problem here is not my bag. The problem is your behavior. You have been hostile since you arrived. I would appreciate it if you would simply keep to yourself for the remainder of this flight." Karen's face went crimson. The audacity. To be spoken to like that? By her? "Hostile," Karen gasped, her voice suddenly rising in volume. "I am not the one who's hostile. I am a Platinum Medallion member. I fly this route monthly. I belong here. I'm not so sure about you." Heads were beginning to turn. "What is that supposed to mean?" Clara asked, her voice dangerously quiet. "It means I've seen it before," Karen said, now projecting to the cabin. People using buddy passes they shouldn't, or fake upgrade certificates. People who don't belong in this cabin, trying to sneak in. Sneak in? Clara repeated. The words hung in the air, cold and heavy. You are accusing me of sneaking into this seat. Well, it's suspicious, Karen barreled on, high on her own indignation. You're probably just confused. Maybe your seat is 22A, not 2A. They look similar. A younger flight attendant, Mark, scurried over, his face a mask of anxious politeness. Ladies, is there a problem here? Yes, there is, Karen announced, pointing a finger at Clara. This person is in the wrong seat. She's refusing to move. I think she stole this ticket. Stole. The word hit the cabin like a gunshot. Mark, the flight attendant, looked at Clara, his eyes wide with panic. He was 22, new to the international route, and completely out of his depth. He saw a well-dressed black woman being accused by a loud, insistent white woman. His training manual had no page for this. "Ma'am," he said to Clara, his voice trembling slightly. I'm so sorry, but would you mind? Could I just see your boarding pass again?" Clara stared at him. Not at Karen, but at him. The crew member. The one who was supposed to de-escalate, to protect passengers. And he had just implicitly validated the accusation. He had asked her, the calm one, the one sitting in her assigned seat, to prove she belonged. The public humiliation had begun. The cabin was now silent, save for the low hum of the engines. Every passenger in first class was watching, their faces ranging from embarrassed to annoyed to morbidly curious. Clara held Mark's gaze for a long, heavy moment. She could see the internal conflict in his eyes, his desire to appease the loud, aggressive passenger versus the protocol he had likely forgotten. "My boarding pass," Clara said, her voice perfectly level, "was scanned at the lounge, at the gate, and again as I boarded. You yourself looked at it. It is correct. I am in seat 2A. "But she could have changed it," Karen interjected, her voice shrill. "You don't know. You need to check your main computer. I'll bet she doesn't even have a ticket. She's probably a non-revenue passenger who got on with a friend and is just trying to see if she can get away with it." "Ma'am," Mark said, turning to Karen, "please lower your voice." "I will not. Not until you remove her." This was a critical moment. Clara knew it. She could escalate, raise her voice, and become the angry black woman they all half expected. Or she could do what she did best, let the other side overplay their hand. But the senior flight attendant, Susan, arrived before she had to choose. Susan, with her 20 years of service, had a placid, authoritative mask. "What is the disturbance?" she asked, her eyes sweeping over Karen's furious face and Clara's arctic calm. "Susan, thank God," Karen gushed. "This woman is in the wrong seat. I think she's an imposter, and she's being very aggressive with me. She even threatened me. I don't feel safe." Clara's blood ran cold. Aggressive, threatened, unsafe. The holy trinity of words used to weaponize prejudice. Karen wasn't just being a bigot. She was being a strategic one. She was building a case to have Clara, the victim, removed. Susan looked at Clara. "Ma'am?" "None of that is true," Clara said simply. "I am in my ticketed seat. This passenger, Ms. Brown, spilled her drink on my property, accused me of not belonging in this cabin, and has now escalated to accusing me of theft and threats." Susan sighed. "This was he said, she said." The flight was already 10 minutes behind schedule. The captain was on the radio asking about the delay. Susan needed to solve this, and the path of least resistance was, as it so often was, to appease the aggressor. "Dr. Rose," Susan said, reading the name off the manifest on her tablet. "I can see you are ticketed for 2A, but just to resolve this confusion and put the other passenger's mind at ease, would you be so kind as to come with me to the galley? We can rescan your pass there, privately, and get this all sorted out." Clara's stomach dropped. Privately. There was nothing private about being publicly summoned from her first-class seat, like a schoolchild called to the principal's office, while her accuser watched. She looked at Karen Brown. A smug, triumphant smirk was plastered on her face. She had won. She had successfully othered Clara to the point where the crew was now treating her like a problem to be handled. "You're asking me to move," Clara stated. It was not a question. "Just for a moment, ma'am. To the galley." "So we can clear this up," Susan said, her smile not reaching her eyes. Slowly, deliberately, Clara Rose unbuckled her seatbelt. She slipped her heels back on. She picked up her leather briefcase, the one with the champagne stain. She did not look at Karen. She held her head high and walked the 10 feet to the forward galley, every eye in the cabin following her. It felt like a mile. In the galley, a cramped space smelling of coffee and disinfectant, Susan and Mark stood awkwardly. "Dr. Rose, I do apologize for the inconvenience," Susan began. "Save it," Clara said, her voice like ice. "Scan the pass." Mark took her boarding pass, his hand shaking, and scanned it with the onboard device. Beep. The screen flashed green. "Passenger. Rose Clara. Seat. 2A. Status. OK. Ticket. Full fare. F." "There," Mark said, relieved. It's perfectly valid." "As I told you," Clara said, her gaze fixed on Susan. "As I told you twice." Susan's professionalism finally cracked. She looked genuinely embarrassed. "Dr. Rose, I'm very sorry. Ms. Brown is clearly agitated." "Ms. Brown is a racist," Clara said, the word landing with the finality of a gavel. "And you, by asking me to move, legitimized her racism. You humiliated me in front of an entire cabin to appease her. You chose to inconvenience the victim, not the perpetrator. Your de-escalation protocol is a failure." Before Susan could respond, Clara turned, pushed through the curtain, and walked back to her seat. Karen Brown's jaw was on the floor. She had clearly expected Clara to be reseated in the back of the plane. Seeing her return, walking with the confidence of a queen returning to her throne, made Karen's brain short-circuit. Clara sat down, buckled her belt, and put her headphones on. She picked up her magazine. The message was clear. This is over. But for Karen Brown, it was not. Karen Brown was not a person who accepted defeat. In her world, if you didn't get what you wanted, you just escalated to a higher authority. She was a senior manager, and she was used to winning. The fact that this woman was now back, sitting next to her, looking so unbothered, was an insult. Clara tried to read, but her heart was hammering. The humiliation was a physical ache. She could feel the stares of the other passengers. She could feel the toxic radiation of rage coming from the woman in 2B. Karen pulled out her phone. The cabin doors were still open. The jet bridge was still attached. She began to text, her thumbs flying furiously. Then she put the phone to her ear. "David? Yes, me again. I don't care. Get me to legal. Our legal. I'm on a plane, and I'm being harassed. No, by a passenger. And the crew is letting her. She's threatening me. Yes, threatening. I don't feel safe. I want this person removed. This is a global sky flight, right? Synergy does $20 million as a year with them. I want the Atlanta station manager now." This was no longer a personal dispute. Karen was now invoking her company's corporate account, trying to pull rank on the entire airline. Clara's legal mind, sharp and cold, began to take notes. 1. Public disturbance. Check. 2. Slander and defamation, accusing me of theft. Check. 3. Interference with flight crew duties. Check. 4. Now, making a false report of a threat. Check. Karen Brown was not just being a bigot. She was committing acts that could, technically, be federal offenses. Susan, the flight attendant, who had been in the galley with the captain, came rushing back. "Ma'am, you need to turn off your phone. We are preparing for departure." "I will not," Karen shrieked, standing up in the aisle. "Not until you deal with this. I told you I don't feel safe. You let this imposter back to her seat, and she threatened me. She said she would deal with me." This was a blatant, dangerous lie. "Dr. Rose, did you say that?" Susan asked, her face pale. Clara stood up as well. She was taller than Karen, and her presence seemed to take up all the air in the cabin. "No," Clara said, her voice now carrying the full weight of her authority. "I said nothing of the sort. This woman, Karen Brown, is lying. She is unstable, and she is delaying this flight." "How dare you!" Karen lunged, not to hit, but to jab her finger in Clara's face. You, security, I'm being attacked. Call security right now." This was the final, fatal mistake. The word security on a plane, post 9/11, is a trigger word. It changes everything. Susan immediately spoke into her internal phone. "Captain, we have a level 2 disturbance. Passenger in 2B is standing, refusing to sit, claiming a threat. We need to hold at the gate. Yes, sir. I think we'll need APD." Karen's face was flushed with victory. She had done it. She had invoked the magic word. The police were coming. They would listen to her. The senior manager, the platinum medallion. They would definitely remove the quiet, threatening black woman. The jet bridge, which had just started to pull back, clanged back into place. The cabin door opened. First aboard was Thomas, the gate agent supervisor, his face a mask of grim frustration. Behind him were 2 armed officers from the Atlanta Police Department's airport unit. "What is the problem here?" Thomas asked, his eyes landing on the 2 women standing in the aisle. "Thank God!" Karen cried, the picture of a frantic victim. "Officer, this woman," she pointed at Clara, "is a stowaway. She stole this seat. She threatened my life, and the crew won't do anything. You have to arrest her." The officers looked at Clara. She was calm, poised, her hands by her sides. She did not look like a threat. "Ma'am," one officer said to Clara, "what's your side of the story?" Clara looked past the officer. She looked at Thomas, the gate agent. She recognized him from a dozen operational meetings. "Thomas," Clara said, her voice cutting through the drama. "You know who I am." Thomas looked at her. He saw a familiar face, but out of context. "Ma'am? Look at your manifest," Clara commanded. "Look at my name. Dr. Clara Rose." Thomas's eyes went wide. He fumbled for his tablet. He scrolled. He saw the name, and then he looked up, not at a passenger, but at his ultimate boss, his face drained of all color. Dr. Rose?" he stammered. The airport authority." The officers froze. Karen Brown's mouth snapped shut. "Yes, Thomas," Clara said, her voice echoing in the sudden, tomb-like silence of the cabin. "I am Dr. Clara Rose. I am the General Counsel and Legal Director for Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport." If a bomb had gone off, the shock in the cabin could not have been more profound. Susan, the senior flight attendant, let out a small, strangled gasp. Mark, the junior FA, looked like he might faint. The APD officers, who reported up a chain of command that also ultimately answered to the airport authority on matters of law and protocol, took an instinctive, respectful step back. Karen Brown's brain simply refused to accept the information. Her face contorted in disbelief. What? That's impossible. You're lying. She's lying. Clara paid her no mind. She was no longer a passenger. She was the airport's chief lawyer, on site at a security incident. She reached into her briefcase, the one with the champagne stain, and retrieved her wallet. She flipped it open, not to her driver's license, but to her official, high-level, airport-issued credentials. She held the badge up for Thomas and the officers to see. It had her photo, a holographic seal, and the unmistakable ominous text. Clara Rose, ESQ. General Counsel and Legal Director, Atlanta Airport Authority. All access, secure, AOA. Thomas, Clara said, her voice pure business. The flight is delayed. The captain is to hold. This is now an active security incident. Yes, Dr. Rose, of course, Thomas stammered, grabbing his radio. Officers, she said, turning to the policeman. This individual, Miss Karen Brown. Hey! Karen yelped, her voice a pathetic squeak. Clara ignored her. Has in the last 20 minutes committed the following. Level 1 disturbance by creating a verbal altercation. Slander, by repeatedly and publicly accusing me of theft. Falsely reporting a threat to life, triggering a security response. And, most critically, repeated interference with a flight crew in the commission of their duties, a violation of federal law. She has refused to be seated and is a non-compliant passenger. She laid out the charges with the cold, sterile precision of a surgeon laying out instruments. Karen Brown was white as a sheet. No, I just thought. It was a mistake. I was confused. Please, I'll sit down. I'm sorry. She made a move to scramble back into seat 2B. Do not sit down, Miss Brown, Clara commanded, and Karen froze, one leg in the air. You are being deplaned. Now. What? Karen shrieked. You can't do that. You're not the airline. Clara almost smiled. It was a terrifying sight. You are correct. I'm not the airline. I am their landlord. I am the legal authority for the ground this plane is sitting on. Your airline, Global Sky, operates here under a 10-year lease agreement that I personally finalized at 2 a.m. this morning. An agreement that contains specific clauses about carrier responsibility for passenger-initiated security delays. She turned to Susan. Susan, as the ranking crew member, I am advising you that this passenger is a safety and security risk. Do you concur? Susan, suddenly realizing the magnitude of her earlier failure, was desperate to get on the right side of this. Yes. Yes, Dr. Rose. She is non-compliant. She is a risk. Then have the captain authorize her removal, Clara ordered. You, Karen sputtered, tears of rage and panic welling in her eyes. You're a bitch. I'll have your job. I'll sue you. I'll sue this whole airport. The APD officer, a large man named Officer Jacobs, had heard enough. Ma'am, you are threatening a public official. You're going to stop talking. You're going to grab your bags, and you're going to come with us, quietly. I am a senior manager at Synergy Solutions, she screamed, as if the title was a magical incantation. My company pays your salaries. We have a $20 million account with Global Sky. Your company's travel budget is irrelevant to the Atlanta Police Department, Officer Jacobs said, his voice bored. He took her by the elbow. This was the moment. The reality hit Karen Brown like a physical blow. She wasn't winning. She was being arrested, or at least detained. She was being removed. No, she wailed, a primal scream of entitlement denied. Please, I'm sorry, I'll be quiet. Please, I have a meeting in London. Don't do this. Ma'am, let's go, the other officer said. They began to escort her, one on each arm. Karen Brown, now sobbing hysterically, was forced to do the walk of shame. She was marched out of first class, past the curtain into Comfort Plus, past the bewildered and staring faces in economy, and off the plane. Her cries of, "You can't do this to me," and "I'm a manager," echoed through the cabin until she was on the jet bridge. The entire plane was silent. Clara Rose stood in the aisle for a moment. She looked at Thomas. She looked at Susan and Mark. "This flight," she said, "is delayed by 45 minutes. That is a 45-minute, passenger-initiated, billable delay, which Global Sky will be charging to Synergy Solutions. I want a full, written report from every crew member involved, especially your failure to de-escalate Susan, on my desk by 9 a.m. Monday. Understood?" "Yes, Dr. Rose," Susan whispered, her face ashen. "Thomas," Clara continued, "see to it that Miss Brown's baggage is pulled from the hold. She is to be banned from this flight, and I will be checking tomorrow to see that she has been placed on the permanent no-fly list for Global Sky Airlines for life, pending a federal review for crew interference." "Yes, Dr. Rose." Clara then sat down in 2A. She buckled her seatbelt. She picked up her magazine, found her page, and began to read. The captain's voice came over the intercom. "Folks, apologies for the delay. We had to remove a disruptive passenger. We should be on our way shortly." The businessman in 1A, who had watched the entire thing, leaned over. "That was," he whispered, "the most magnificent thing I have ever seen." Clara just nodded, not looking up. She was still tired, but the weight on her chest was gone. It had been replaced by the cold, clean, and utterly satisfying engine of justice. The flight to London was, for Clara, 8 hours of controlled, icy fury. The sanctuary she had sought was gone, replaced by the cloying, nauseating scent of panicked obsequiousness. Susan and Mark, the 2 flight attendants, were ghosts. They floated to her side every 15 minutes, their faces masks of pale, desperate terror. "Dr. Rose, can I get you anything? More champagne? A hot towel? The caviar, perhaps?" Mark whispered, his hands visibly trembling. "I am fine, Mark." "Thank you," Clara replied, her voice flat, never looking up from the legal brief she was now actually reading. Later, Susan approached. She knelt by Clara's seat, a profound breach of cabin etiquette that was meant to show subservience. "Dr. Rose," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. I want to personally. I am so sorry. I wasn't thinking. She was so loud." Clara finally turned her head. Her gaze was not forgiving. "What you are, Susan, is a liability. Your apology is noted, but your failure to follow protocol, your immediate capitulation to bias, and your decision to escalate by validating a false claim against me is a matter of record. Your written report, which I expect to be exhaustive, will be far more valuable than your apology." Susan flinched as if struck. She nodded, speechless, and fled back to the galley. Clara was not enjoying this. She took no pleasure in their fear. But she was disappointed. Deeply. Their bias hadn't just insulted her. It had endangered the entire flight. And as the airport's chief legal officer, she could only see the cascade of failures, the gaping hole in the airline's operational integrity. She wasn't just a wronged passenger. She was an auditor who had just stumbled upon a catastrophic flaw. While Clara was 30,000 feet over the Atlantic, the cogs of consequence, mechanical and cold, were already grinding on the ground. Karen Brown's deplaning was not a simple affair. She was not, as she'd hoped, simply told to have a nice day. She was escorted by the 2 APD officers to the airport's small, sterile police precinct, tucked away behind an unmarked door in the E-concourse. The fluorescent lights were humming, and the room smelled of stale coffee and disinfectant. The bravado and indignation she had worn like armor in the cabin had evaporated, leaving behind a whimpering, terrified woman. I... "You can't arrest me," she stammered to Officer Jacobs, who was impassively filling out a report on a thick carbon copy form. "You're not being arrested, ma'am. You're being detained and cited," he said, not looking up. "We're citing you for disorderly conduct and interference with a flight crew. That second one," he added, finally looking at her, "is a federal violation. You're lucky Dr. Rose isn't inclined to call the U.S. Attorney's office. This could be a lot worse for you." "But she threatened me. It was a mistake. I was just confused." "Ma'am, we have statements from 3 flight attendants and 2 other passengers. You screamed. You refused to be seated. You accused an innocent person of theft. And you falsely reported a threat to security. You're done talking." He handed her the citation. Her hands were shaking so badly she couldn't sign it at first. She was fingerprinted, and a digital photo was taken. Her travel visa for her London meeting was now a permanent police record. As she was being released into the main terminal, her London trip in ruins, Thomas, the gate agent supervisor, approached her. He held a tablet and a printed letter. "Ms. Karen Brown," he said, his voice devoid of any emotion. "I am here to inform you that, effective immediately, you are permanently banned from all Global Sky Airlines flights and from all flights operated by our Sky Partner Alliance for life. Your ticket has been cancelled, your luggage is being routed to baggage claim 3, and your medallion status is revoked. Any attempt to board a Global Sky flight in the future will be considered criminal trespass." The blood drained from her face. For life? But my job. I travel every week." "That," Thomas said, "is no longer Global Sky's concern." He turned and walked away. But the most potent, most devastating piece of karma was already in the digital ether. A vlogger in seat 3C, a man who went by Tech Bro Trev, had filmed the entire confrontation. He hadn't just caught the end. He'd started recording when Karen first yelled, "I don't feel safe." His high-definition phone had captured her face, contorted in rage. It had captured her jabbing finger. It had captured her screaming, "I'm a senior manager." And it had captured, with beautiful, clear audio, Clara's final, devastating reveal. "I am the General Counsel and Legal Director for Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport." He'd edited and uploaded the video from the airport's free Wi-Fi before the flight had even left the gate. The title was Epic Karma, entitled Karen. Manager tries to get black woman thrown out of first class, gets deleted by airport's top lawyer. By the time Clara landed at Heathrow, the video had 7.5 million views. She switched her phone off airplane mode as she walked to immigration. It immediately ceased, vibrating in her hand for a solid minute as a deluge of notifications flooded in. Texts, voicemails, hundreds of emails, and tags on every social media platform. Her assistant, Maria, had sent a single, simple email with the video link. Clara stopped in a quiet corner of the terminal and watched it. She watched herself, calm and cold. She watched Karen, unhinged and screaming. She saw the comments. The way the lawyer's voice never even wavered. "Synergy Solutions, y'all better come get your girl. This is not a good look. That is the most satisfying I am the manager Uno reverse card in history." Heard she got banned for life. Good. The internet had already found Karen's LinkedIn profile. It was being posted, shared, and eviscerated. Her company, Synergy Solutions, was trending on Twitter for all the wrong reasons. Clara felt a grim, cold satisfaction. The video was not just vindication. It was leverage. It was evidence. It was the public-facing weapon she needed to enact the real, systemic change. The weekend in London was a blur. She attended her conference, but her mind was back in Atlanta. On Monday morning, Clara Rose walked into her office on the top floor of the ATL corporate building at 8 a.m. sharp. The atmosphere in the executive suite was electric. Everyone had seen the video. They looked at her with a new, profound awe. Her assistant, Maria, met her at the door, tablet in hand. "Good morning, Dr. Rose. Your London trip was eventful." "You saw," Clara stated. "The entire internet saw, Doctor," Maria replied, her voice crisp. "The video is now at 15 million views across platforms. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the New York Times, and CNN have all called for comment. I've sent them all a no comment pending internal review. Correct?" "Correct," Clara said, hanging her coat. "Good. Also, James Harrison is in your conference room." Clara paused. James Harrison was the CEO of Global Sky Airlines, America's division. "He's early." "He's been here since 7:15 a.m., Maria said. "He flew in from Dallas last night. He looks agitated. And Robert Chen, the CEO of Synergy Solutions, has personally called my line 5 times since 6 a.m. I have him on a video call hold for 9:30. Excellent. Get me the incident reports from Susan and Mark, and a large black coffee. Then let's go see Mr. Harrison." Clara walked into the conference room. James Harrison, a man known for his slick, predator-like confidence, shot out of his $5,000 suit chair. He was rumpled, his tie was crooked, and he looked like he hadn't slept. "Clara," he said, his hand spread in a gesture of supplication. "My God, I don't have the words. I am mortified, appalled. I saw the video. I've already fired the senior flight attendant, Susan, and the other one, Mark. They're gone. We are handling it. This is not who we are." Clara held up a hand. "Sit down, James, and do not ever lie to me in my own office." Harrison froze. "I checked the crew manifests and HR 3 forms at 6 a.m. this morning," Clara said, her voice like a razor. "They are on paid administrative leave, pending a review. You haven't handled anything. You're trying to put a bandage on a sucking chest wound." Harrison flinched and sat, his face pale. "This is not a social visit, James. This is a legal matter," Clara said, sliding a thick, bound document across the polished mahogany table. "This is the 10-year, multi-billion-dollar lease agreement your company signed at 2 a.m. on Friday morning. The one I wrote." She tapped a specific page. "Let me draw your attention to Section 4, Clause A, Subparagraph 3. Carrier shall be responsible for any and all passenger-initiated security incidents resulting from a failure of carrier's staff to follow approved de-escalation protocols or from staff exhibited bias. You know what a material breach of this lease means, don't you, James?" Harrison's face went from pale to ashen. "Clara, you can't be serious. Over one incident. One racist passenger. It's not a breach." "It is," Clara countered, her voice dangerously quiet. "When the passenger who was racially profiled, slandered, publicly humiliated, and summoned from her seat also happens to be the airport's general counsel. Your crew didn't just fail a passenger. They failed me. In my house. They turned a simple seat dispute into a Level 2 security incident that required an armed APD response. They delayed an international flight. They cost this airport time, money, and now, thanks to tech bro Trev, public reputation. So yes, James, it's a breach." Harrison stared at her. He was trapped. What do you want?" he whispered. "I'm glad you asked," Clara said, her posture unyielding. "Here is what is going to happen. 1. You will fund, at Global Sky's sole expense, a new, mandatory bias and de-escalation training program. Not some 30-minute webinar. I'm talking a full-day, scenario-based certification for every single gate agent, flight attendant, and pilot based in Atlanta. And you're not writing the curriculum. A third-party diversity and inclusion consultant, one my office approves, will design it. And my office will have final sign-off. It will be implemented within 90 days. Clara, for the entire Atlanta hub, that will cost millions, Harrison choked out. It will, Clara rose. And it will cost less than the lawsuit you'd be facing if I wasn't the airport's lawyer. Or I can just call a press conference and announce that the airport authority is reviewing its multi-billion-dollar lease with Global Sky due to safety and security failures. Your call. Harrison's head dropped. Okay. What else? 2. Global Sky will issue a formal public apology, not a "we are sorry for the incident" piece of corporate fluff, a real one. We apologize for the failure of our crew. We failed to protect a passenger from racial harassment. We have a zero-tolerance policy for this, and we are implementing new training, etc. My communications director will be approving the final text. And 3, she said, leaning forward. You will not fire Susan and Mark. This genuinely confused him. He looked up. What? But you thought I wanted blood? I'm not a predator, James. I'm a lawyer. Firing them just makes them Delta's problem, or United's. It doesn't fix anything. It's a symptom. The disease is your training. You will retrain them. They will be the first 2 to pass this new certification, and they will do it on their own time. You will fix your company, not just fire the people who exposed its flaws. Am I clear? James Harrison, one of the most powerful men in aviation, looked completely and utterly defeated. He was trapped by his own company's failure and by the ironclad contract she had written. Crystal clear, Dr. Rose. Good, Clara said, standing. Send your general counsel to my office this afternoon to draft the addendum. Maria will show you out. I have another call. Clara Rose watched the door click shut behind James Harrison. The CEO of Global Sky Airlines had, for all his bluster, practically sprinted from the room, his face a mask of pale, defeated relief. He had escaped with his lease intact, but at the cost of millions in mandated training and a public, humiliating apology. For Clara, it was a sound, structural repair. The first part of the operation was complete. She walked back to her own office, the adjoining sanctum of glass and steel overlooking the airport's sprawling runways. The black coffee she had requested an hour ago was waiting on her desk, beside a small, neat stack of phone messages. Her assistant, Maria, looked up from her console. Was the meeting with Mr. Harrison productive, Dr. Rose? Clara took a sip of the coffee. It was lukewarm. It was conclusive, Maria. Please send a calendar invite to his general counsel and our compliance team for 3 p.m. Title it, Execution of Lease Addendum, 4.A Compliance and Training. Yes, Doctor. Maria's fingers flew. And Mr. Robert Chen from Synergy Solutions is still on hold. He has been for 28 minutes. He sounds anxious, Clara offered, settling into her high-back leather chair. She looked at the blinking light on her console. He should be. Patch him through. And no other interruptions, please. The large monitor on her wall flickered to life. The face of Robert Chen, CEO of Synergy Solutions, appeared. He was a man in his late 50s, with a sharp suit and a face that looked like it had been carved from granite. Today that granite was crumbling. He was in his office, but he was disheveled, his tie was loose, and his eyes were red-rimmed with stress and a distinct lack of sleep. He began before Clara could even speak. Dr. Rose, thank you for taking my call. I'm Robert Chen. Words cannot express how horrified, How utterly disgusted I am. I have seen the video. I've seen it a dozen times. That behavior, it is abhorrent. It's just not who we are. I am so profoundly sorry." His apology gushed out, a torrent of frantic corporate damage control. Clara let him talk, her face impassive, her fingers steepled. She waited for him to finally run out of air. When he paused, gulping, she did not accept his apology. She did not acknowledge his disgust. She simply coolly pivoted. "Mr. Chen," she said, her voice as calm and steady as the horizon line visible over her shoulder. "Your personal disgust is noted, but I am not calling you as a private citizen. I am calling you as the General Counsel for the Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. My concern is not your feelings. My concern is your company's liability." Chen's face tightened. This was language he understood. "I am glad you've seen the video," Clara continued. "That means you are also aware that it has been viewed, as of this morning, over 15 million times. And in the comment sections of that video, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and now, in the articles being written by the press, your company's name, Synergy Solutions, is inextricably linked with racism, entitlement, and public harassment." She leaned forward, her eyes locking on his. "Your employee, Ms. Karen Brown, on a flight I am forced to assume was for company business." "It was," Chen interrupted. "She was traveling to our London office." Clara held up a hand, silencing him. "On a ticket, I therefore presume, paid for by your firm, engaged in a sustained campaign of racial harassment against me." This was not a simple misunderstanding, Mr. Chen. It was a targeted, aggressive encounter. It culminated in her making a false, material report of a security threat to law enforcement, which required an armed police response and a federal citation. Chen looked physically ill. I know. It's indefensible." "That," Clara Ag rose, "is the least of your problems. The true corporate liability, the part that has my undivided attention, is how she did it. While she was screaming at me, while she was lying to the flight crew and later to the police, she was not just Karen Brown, angry passenger. She repeatedly invoked her corporate identity. She screamed, and I quote, "I am a senior manager at Synergy Solutions." She shrieked at the flight crew. "My company does $20 million a year with Global Sky." She tried to leverage your firm's economic power to intimidate flight staff and law enforcement into validating her racism. Clara let the words hang in the air. Chen's face had gone from ashen to a deep, blotchy red. "She did not just act as a bigot, Mr. Chen. She acted as a representative of Synergy Solutions. She made your corporate travel account a weapon. She made you complicit. She wrapped her prejudice in your company's brand and dared anyone to challenge her. She has, in 45 minutes, made Synergy Solutions the global face of corporate weaponized bigotry." "That is not who we are," Chen finally exploded, his voice cracking. Our values are diversity, integrity, respect. We have committees. We have initiatives." "Your company's values," Clara countered, her voice dropping to a surgical whisper, "are, at this moment, being defined by Ms. Brown's actions in a viral video. Your brand is now toxic. It's toxic in the aviation industry, and it is toxic in my airport. The Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, Mr. Chen, is a global hub. We are the gateway to the world for 100 million passengers a year, from every nation, every race, every crows. We cannot and we will not have employees from our major corporate partners running around our terminals and on our carriers, compromising federal flight operations and creating a hostile, discriminatory environment for other passengers." She paused, then delivered the final, critical blow. My office, as I'm sure you can imagine, is fielding non-stop calls. The New York Times, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, CNN. They're all asking for a statement. They're not just asking about the incident anymore. They're asking about Synergy Solutions. They are asking me, as the airport's general counsel, what our official stance is on our corporate partners and their codes of conduct. They're asking if we're reviewing our relationship with companies whose employees pose a security risk. This was the lever. She had just offered him a choice. She could, in her statement, either express deep concern about the corporate culture at Synergy Solutions, or she could applaud Synergy for its swift, decisive, and zero-tolerance response. The choice was his. Robert Chen was not a stupid man. He understood the subtext perfectly. He was being handed a lifeline, and it was attached to an anchor. "Dr. Rose," he said, his voice now a low, tight rasp. I understand. What can we do? What do you need from us? We will make this right. I will handle Ms. Brown, personally, immediately." Clara leaned back, her part in this negotiation finished. "I am not your PR consultant, Mr. Chen, and I am not your HR department. My only concern is the safety, security, and integrity of this airport. You have an employee who has been cited by law enforcement for a federal violation. You have an employee who has publicly linked your entire corporate brand to racist harassment. How you handle that is a direct reflection of the values you just quoted to me. I will be watching, Mr. Chen, as will 15 million other people. You have my number if you have a formal update. Good day." She clicked the button, and the screen went black. The execution was complete. Clara finally allowed herself a small, grim smile. She took a sip of her cold coffee. It was done. She had dealt with the systemic failure, Global Sky, and the cultural one, Synergy. One required a long-term structural fix. The other required a clean, decisive excision. Maria's voice came over the intercom, her tone crisp. "Dr. Rose, the Journal-Constitution is on line 1 again. They say they have a source inside Synergy. Something about a company-wide memo that's about to drop." "Tell them," Clara said, standing up and stretching, "that I have no comment on that matter. But they can expect a statement from my office by 3 p.m. regarding an innovative new partnership with Global Sky Airlines on enhanced passenger safety and de-escalation training." 2 hours later, an internal memo was leaked from Synergy Solutions. It hit the newswires with the force of a thunderclap. From Robert Chen, CIO, Synergy Solutions, to all staff subject, upholding our values team. Many of you may have seen a deeply disturbing video circulating on social media this past weekend involving a Synergy Solutions employee. To be clear, the behavior exhibited by Karen Brown on that flight was a gross and abhorrent violation of our company's code of conduct and our core, non-negotiable values of respect, integrity, and human dignity. As of 9 a.m. this morning, Karen Brown is no longer an employee of Synergy Solutions. We have terminated her employment, effective immediately. We have a zero-tolerance policy for racism, harassment, and bullying of any kind. This policy extends to all employees, in all settings, whether in the office, traveling for business, or in public. We will not allow the indefensible actions of one individual to tarnish the reputation of our firm or the dedicated work of our staff. We have reached out to Dr. Clara Rose to express our profound apologies for this incident. Clara read the memo on her tablet. The final piece of the puzzle had clicked into place. The karma was now complete. Karen Brown had lost her 6-figure job. She had lost her platinum medallion status. She was banned for life from Global Sky and its alliance partners. She had a federal police citation on her permanent record. And, thanks to tech bro Trev, her name was now a global byword for public, racist humiliation. Clara Rose closed her tablet. She had a 10 a.m. negotiation with a duty-free conglomerate about retail space in the new international terminal. She smoothed the front of her suit jacket, picked up her files, and walked out of her office, ready for the next challenge. The gates, she thought, were all wide open. This wasn't just a story about a Karen getting what she deserved. It was a story about precision. Dr. Clara Rose didn't just win an argument. She surgically dismantled the entire system that allowed the attack to happen. She held the individual, the airline crew, and the corporation accountable. The hard karma wasn't just getting kicked off the flight. It was losing the job, losing the reputation, and forcing a multi-million-dollar change in policy. It's a powerful reminder that the person you underestimate, the person you dismiss, might just be the one who owns the entire building. The world is full of Clara Roses, and a lot of Karen Browns are finding that out the hard way. What did you think of Dr. Rose's response? Was it the perfect karma, or should she have done more? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you love stories where the powerful get a taste of their own medicine, make sure to hit that like button, share this video with a friend, and subscribe for more true-life karma stories just like this one. Click that notification bell so you never miss an update.